All right, traders, within this video, I'm going to be recapping the trades that were made today, and this is going to show you how you can scalp the SPY both ways, how to trade the call options and how to trade the put options. In terms of situations where we aim for a bigger win and trade the best setups at the best prices, which is more ideal for the small accounts who are on cash, there hasn't been really any opportunities this week. So I've mainly been scalping, and it's a very ideal situation for me at the moment because I'm currently visiting my friend George here in Miami, and he's developing a strategy where it's meant for margin accounts above 25K with options, where you scalp options very, very quickly within minutes we're talking, where we're aiming for a quick 5%, 10%, sometimes it's a 15 to 20% plus gainer within minutes, and we're cutting losses ideally no more than 3%. And it's a big position size. So basically it's a strategy that doesn't aim for a huge win, and it's more focused around, cutting losers extremely quickly, taking a decent position size, and then letting your winners run. So within this video, we're gonna be discussing how to be scalping the SPY. With that being said, guys, let's get straight into it. In terms of SPY, I had an absolute killer alert today. It was my last trade of the day. It was the best trade that I made that I made today. It really put my portfolio up nicely on the day. It was a SPY call option at 3 p.m. My plan was to buy SPY call options. I bought the call options. They went up 20% in 2 minutes. I sold, I locked in my profits. A couple minutes later, they went up over 50% plus. Absolutely insane trade, man. I'm going to show you how I was able to time the bottom perfectly on the SPY. We're also going to be discussing how you could have banked on put options today as well. So let's get right into the trend analysis. So tomorrow should be a huge day because it is going to be Friday. I've been known for having some of my best days trading on Friday. So let's kind of talk about SPY and talk about the strategies and kind of where we're moving forward. So in terms of like micro scalps, I'm talking about scalps where you get in, you get out within a couple minutes, right? So this type of strategy is more ideal for margin accounts who can just get in and get out with a decent position size, where in terms of their portfolio, a 5% return within a couple minutes is going to be a huge percentage gain on the portfolio if they're sizing in decently. And it's meant to cut losers very, very quickly. So like I said, we're trying to keep losers below 3% on the contracts, and we're trying to get winners at least 5% plus, and sometimes we're hitting 10%, 15%, 20%, even 30% sometimes. And these are scalps that are meant to be made within minutes that revolve around very good timing and very good entries. So let's talk about the SPY. So in terms of the SPY, we had a massive gap down, and then we sat in a channel extremely long. And I'm going to show you soon how I was able to time the bottom perfectly. This was all alerted in real time. It was prepared. I was saying at 2 p.m. I'm buying SPY call options exactly at 3 p.m. Literally at 2:59 p.m. I bought the calls. They rocketed 20% in 3 minutes, and then I locked in, sold profits way too soon because I've been scalping in and out recently. I've been scalping extremely in and out. I haven't been seeing many best setups at the best prices lately, so I've just been doing some scalps, working on a new strategy. So with that being said, let's take a look at the SPY. So in terms of the SPY, we have key resistance. You have major resistance at $369, and you have major support at $366. So in terms of, my friend George, who's currently living in Miami, he likes to wait until usually like 12 p.m. He likes to wait for the chart to develop. So he doesn't trade at the market open. I like trading at the market open. He doesn't trade at the market open. He likes waiting for the chart to be more developed, where there's more of a channel. And in terms of mastery, what he's mastered is trading the middle of the day. From like 12 p.m. to around 3 p.m. That's what he focuses on. So with that being said, the chart was clearly developed. We had a strong development on the SPY chart, and that development came in right around here, which is 11 a.m. So right around this time, we had heavy support and we had heavy resistance. So once you see that develop, once you see that big move, in terms of micro puts, the best level is at 269. I wasn't playing puts at the best prices. I was playing more of key breakdowns, which did well for nice quick scalps, but I wasn't playing at the major resistance levels today like I normally would. I just kind of stayed away, and I was focusing on calls on dips as well. But in terms of the range was, 369 all the way down to 360, 580, we'll call it, right? So we're going to call that the range. So, the best price for puts is right here, and the best price for calls is right here in terms of, best prices, right? Now, with that being said, you can see there was many opportunities to buy puts on the rips. There was an opportunity right here, there was an opportunity right here, and there was an opportunity right here to buy puts on the rips. Now let's talk bearish trend and new lows. SPY ended up cracking, getting a new low of day right here. In terms of bearish trends, how could this have been an ideal opportunity? Let's talk calls and puts. So in terms of calls, look at the strong bounces. Your strong bounces came in at key support right here when the wick formed. You see the key support and you see the wick right here, and then the strong bounce. You see there's a lot of support trading right here. Look at this. You have dojis coming in. Notice how it rips once you have these strong gray dragonfly dojis come in, it starts to rip up. And then here you go again at the same support level, it starts to rip up. I played a call, did very, very well in that situation on the dip, right? So if you notice, when SPY hits these key ideal support levels, when the chart is developed, and it typically likes to develop past 11 a.m., it likes to rip on these key support levels with these dojis forming in the higher support. Now let's talk bear trends. We're obviously in a bearish market sentiment. So one of the best things you can do is to focus on the overall trend, which would be puts at resistance. That's one of the best things you could be doing. And in terms of puts at resistance, you wait for the big downside move to already happen. You don't have to predict anything. And right here, the big downside move happened at 369, and it had a massive pullback for new lows. So you know if it retests that resistance, as soon as you see that red candle form, play the puts. Play the puts. Very quick scalps in and out. Your max risk is going to be the highs above the resistance. You want to be entering literally where you want to be cutting your losses basically. So the idea on these, the idea on these quick scalps would be to get in at these best levels and to not even wait for like this red bearish candle. You can wait for a little bit of a confirmation if you want, but you kind of want to get in on a green candle so you can get in at the best price after it's already been proven a strong resistance and a strong rejection. And then you kind of ride it back down and take some profits very, very quickly on the dip. And as you can see, there was multiple opportunities for puts. Now let's talk about this bearish downtrend in this new low, because SPY got a new low right here. If we were to look at this overall chart on the SPY, it looked very similar to yesterday's chart. It had this sideways downtrend, right? And you had this sideways downtrend. It got new lows on the later of the day, and it got new lows on the later of the day. So if you were comparing today's chart to yesterday's chart, you would have spotted a lot of similarities in terms of what can possibly happen where we get this, if we get this new low of the day right around here towards 3 p.m. See how it rips right at 3 p.m. It starts ripping up, right around here. We have this theory, right, where if history can repeat itself, and if you look at it, very similar chart, sideways chop, slanted down, bearish new lows. Sideways chart, slanted down, bearish new lows, and then it rips up towards power hour, and then it rips up towards power hour, right? So the kind of idea in this whole situation was, let's talk about bearish trend. In terms of put opportunities, puts at major resistance, major resistance, major resistance, major resistance, calls on the dip with the doji, calls on the dip with the doji, and then calls on the dip with the doji. And then let's talk bearish trend. So in terms of overall bearish trend, let's look at the 5-day, 5-minute. We're going to compare this trend in terms of yesterday. So when I'm trading the SPY, I'm always looking at the VIX, and I'm always looking at previous days in the daily chart, the 1-day, 1-minute, the 1-day, 5-minute. I've been working on the 30-minute chart as well. But anyways, in terms of the overall chart, you can see it looks very similar to yesterday in terms of how it developed. Sideways slanted down move with new lows, sideways slanted down new lows, right? Very similar situation. So when you get this retest at this major resistance, this is an opportunity to play puts. Now let's discuss the bearish move here. So in terms of the bearish move, you can see we had the major resistance on the SPY right here. And you can see, let's identify some support levels. So this is going to show you how to determine if the trend is bearish. Your resistance is right here. Now let's pull up the 5-minute chart. This is going to show you how to identify a key level. So this right here, this is a make it or break it key level. Check out this level right here. This is your strong support at 365.76 with big upside. This is your strong resistance right here at 369 with big downside, right? So the best price for calls, best price for puts. Now let's discuss key support. Where's your key support that's in the middle? What's the support channel that's in the middle? Where if it cracks this, SPY is just going to get absolutely crushed. It's going to be right here where these dojis were forming. We're going to call this the middle. Take a look at this doji and take a look at this doji right here. This is going to be the middle. What's the middle level right now? So the middle level that we're looking at is going to be $367. If the SPY cracks 367, it's going to get absolutely crushed and go for new lows and form a similar pattern like it's been doing, where it has this rip up and then it sells off into power hour, then it rips. It has this rip up and then it sells off into power hour, then it rips. It has this rip up and then it sells off into power hour, right? It's going to have that very similar pattern that we've been looking at that's been kind of happening pretty much all week. So in terms of puts, it topped out right here at key resistance. It formed a lower high. It formed a lower high. In terms of more bearish confirmations, right here. This is going to show you how to identify shifts in reversals right here. This is key. So we know this 367 level in the middle has a nice upside to 369. It's the middle of the channel. Now, if SPY cracks 367, notice how right here it forms support, and it forms the doji, and it rips up like crazy. Notice right here, it pulls back. It has a small little bounce, but that bounce is a lower high. And then it forms resistance right here. You have a bearish doji. See right here, the bearish doji right here. See right here, the bullish doji right here. So bullish doji at 367 in the middle of the channel, it rips up. Bearish doji right here forming lower highs at that previous support right here at the low of this bullish doji. It's a bearish confirmation. That confirms that SPY is going to continue to sell off. And ever since that move happened, it's been turning previous support here into resistance, which means it's going to sell off and then push back for the new low of day, right? So you guys see that pattern, you see that trend, you see that, it has the strong support right here in the 5 minute. It has the strong support right here in the 5 minute. Once it cracks and reacts as a resistance, you play the puts and ride it back down. Now, let me discuss the theory on this, incredible call on the call side as well. So that was the put side, and George was absolutely killing it on the put side today many times. Let me discuss the call side today. So in terms of the call side, at 3 p.m., I had this theory, if SPY's chart can look like yesterday, where we have this rip up back towards the highs, we have this rip up right here back towards the highs. If it could sell off towards and hit a new low of day, if it could sell off and hit a new low of day, my theory was at around 3 p.m., if we can get a small little bounce into the new lows, the plan would be to buy into the fear. So right here, notice how as soon as it hits the new lows at this prime time yesterday, it rips up, and it's done that multiple times. So the idea was to buy into the fear. If you look right here, it had a massive sell-off, it hit new lows, and if you bought into the fear, into this bullish candlestick, it ripped up like crazy. So my theory was it was going to do that again. And you could see right here, this is when it started to occur. So the plan was to buy calls exactly at 3 p.m., and that's exactly what I did. With that being said, as you could see right here at 3 p.m., it ripped up like crazy. I bought at 2:59 p.m. I played the calls 2:59 p.m. Why did I buy? Because this is resistance. This is a lower high. It broke down for new lows. It started bouncing. It had a breakout above this resistance right here, and it started forming higher support in a green candle. And then right here, when I saw it followed by another green candle at 3:59 a.m. at 2:59 p.m. That was my confirmation to buy calls because the trend is shifting. How do I know the trend is shifting? Because it's breaking above previous lower highs. It's breaking above resistance. And when SPY has that big new low sell-off right around that key time frame, whether it's 1 p.m. or 3 p.m., it likes to rip back up. If you were just looking at the chart and comparing it to yesterday, you should have seen a lot of similarities. Now, that was one of the reasons. This is why for those of you who stay to the end of these videos, you truly get rewarded with the best information, because now I'm going to start talking about the VIX. So in terms of my theory that we were going to rip up massively at 3 p.m., and guys, I'm telling you, these calls, if you bought at 2:59 p.m. like I did, they went up over 50% within a couple minutes. I sold for 20%. But with that being said, I'm going to show you in terms of the theory. Why was I also interested in SPY calls at 3 p.m.? So I explained to you with the chart in terms of the comparison on the SPY yesterday, my theory and my confirmations once it broke above those lower highs with that green candle at 2:59 p.m. is starting to confirm with that green candle turning those lower highs into support. Now, look at the VIX. The VIX is the reason why. The VIX is the strong reason why I decided to buy SPY calls at 2:59 p.m. Take a look at the VIX. You have resistance right here on the VIX with big downside potential. Where's the resistance? $34.50. $35. Major resistance, big downside potential. Now let's talk about the gaps. The VIX has a gap to fill, one of the highest gaps to fill above, right here at $34.30. So my theory was, if SPY sells off and gets a new low like it did yesterday at around that 3 p.m. key time frame for the power hour rip, if it does that, then VIX is going to rip up to fill the gap. And once VIX forms a bearish candlestick, now check this out. This is why you got to watch the VIX. Look at the candlestick on the VIX. This was my confirmation. Look at the 5-day, 5-minute chart. This right here, when it forms this doji, this is a trend reversal candlestick. If you see a doji like this or a gravestone doji form at major resistance, when a stock fills the gap, it's going to have a reversal. It's going to start to sell off. So when I saw VIX and it forming this doji at that gap fill level, that means it's going to have a gap close reversal. Remember how we went over the gap close reversal on the VIX yesterday, where it fills this gap, it has a reversal, and then it rockets back down. And then once it fills this, remember this? We talked about this in yesterday's video. VIX fills the gap right here, and it sells off, and then SPY rips up. And then VIX fills the gap right here, and then it goes up, and then SPY goes down, right? We talked about this yesterday. So I did the same exact thing that we spoke about yesterday. VIX had a massive gap up. This is an overreaction. So what I tell you guys, when stocks have these overreactions, when VIX has this overreaction where it rockets up and fills this gap, this is the gap right here at $34.30. If you get a bearish confirmation with that, you play the calls on SPY because VIX is going to drop. So in terms of what was my way of confirming that it was going to tank, one of the confirmations was the doji. Once I noticed the doji on the 5-minute with the VIX, that's a very bearish confirmation that we're going to see a trend reversal. And as you can see, as soon as it formed the doji and as soon as it filled the gap, it sold off. And if you've been paying attention to the VIX has been having gap close reversals like crazy. There was a gap to fill in the VIX right here. This is an overreaction. Massive gap down. It rockets back up to fill this gap, sells off hard, has a gap close reversal. Overreaction, massive spike, overreaction, right? Overreactions, gap close reversals. Those are your best plays. And then here we go again. Massive sell-off, fills the gap below, and then overreaction, it rips. So the theory was, this is an overreaction. The VIX had a massive gap up. We're talking about a move yesterday from $27.80 all the way to $34. That's insane. So you better believe if SPY's selling off into new lows right before power hour at 3 p.m. and the VIX fills this gap right here at $34.30 and it forms this doji, you better believe that the VIX is going to get absolutely crushed, which is going to send SPY to the moon, and SPY is going to start ripping. So right there, that's how you figure this out, guys. Pay attention to the gaps. If it wasn't for that gap, and if it wasn't for yesterday's chart, there would have been absolutely no reason for me to play the calls. So the reason how I was able to, play that so well is by using the gap close reversal strategy on the VIX, combining it with the SPY. If you look right here, what happened yesterday when SPY had a massive sell-off towards power hour? What happened? It ripped up like crazy. And if you look at today, as soon as it started getting its new lows, right around 3 p.m., it ripped up crazy. How do you time it perfectly? Look at the VIX. As soon as VIX filled the gap right here at the 5-minute chart, it formed a doji. And this is an overreaction. What's an overreaction? An overreaction is when there's a big one-sided directional move, right? So right here, this is a big one-sided directional move. It goes from $29.90 all the way to fill the gap. That's an overreaction. It happens very quickly, overreaction. When it fills that gap, it has a reversal. This is another example of an overreaction, right? We went over this in yesterday's video. When it fills this gap right here, and it had a massive sell-off, big overreaction from 35 all the way to fill the gap right here at 27.90, this is an overreaction. So it has a gap close reversal, right? And then you could see right here, this is another overreaction from 27.90. What happened last time when we were trading in the 34.50s to 35? Big sell-off, big sell-off. So if VIX can fill this gap like it did at $34.30 and form a doji or form a bearish candlestick, buy the SPY calls, VIX gets crushed, SPY pumps. That's how I was able to determine it. So like I said, if I wasn't watching the VIX, I wouldn't have been able to time it perfectly. There would have been really no reason for me to buy the SPY calls. It was all because of the VIX, guys. This is how you got to do it, man. Pay attention to these gaps. The key resistance, the gaps, it was an absolute no-brainer to play calls at 3 p.m., guys. It was just so obvious, such a great lucrative opportunity, because this was the type of play where you could have made over 50% on SPY call options, going just 1 point, not even like 1 point out of the money for a 50% print for the expirations that expire tomorrow. I played 365 strikes. I was buying them in the 364.60 range. They instantly became in the money a minute later, and it just kept on rocketing. So now you know how to determine a reversal on the SPY. See how SPY has its best moves when it has that massive crash for the new lows into the close, and then it rips. Massive crash for the new lows, and then it rips. Massive crash for the new lows, and then it rips. So if you combine that theory of buying into that fear towards that key time frame, whether it's 1 p.m. or 3 p.m., and if you combine that theory with the VIX of when the VIX fills a gap for the reversal, so if VIX is rocketing up to fill the gap, it forms a bearish confirmation, a bearish candlestick for the trend reversal, buy the SPY calls. There you go. That's how I was able to time it perfectly. So like I said, overreactions. VIX goes from 35 massive sell-off, all the way to 21.90, all the way to 29.9, massive sell-off. That's an overreaction. Instantly rips up to fill this gap. Is it going to keep pumping? Yeah, right. Yeah, right. It's an instant pump. That's a classic gap close reversal. And then right here, massive sell-off, 35s to fill the gap at 27.80s. Is it going to get absolutely crushed? I don't think so. There's still a gap to fill above right here, and it fills the gap and it has its reversal. And then right here, is it just going to keep on rocketing? I don't think so, because there's major resistance right here. There's a gap to fill right here, and you got to wait for confirmation, bearish confirmation right here. And then it absolutely sells off. And this right here, as soon as VIX formed this on the 5 minute, the SPY calls were going crazy, guys. So that's how you do it. That's how I was able to determine. And this was all alerted in real time. It was so on fucking point. Like the plays, some of the plays we had today, it was just crazy on how well the timing was. But I was talking about this play since 2 p.m. where I'm buying calls on SPY if the VIX rejects the gap at 34.30. And if it happens where SPY's getting new lows right around 3 p.m., I'm going heavy on calls. And that's exactly what I did. And they printed like crazy. All the confirmations were there using the VIX, looking at the chart yesterday, looking at the pattern where we have this sideways downtrend, crash for new lows, buy into the fear it rips up, buy into the fear it rips up, calls absolutely exploded. So that's how it was so obvious. The main reason why it was so obvious, the number one reason out of all the reasons, was because of the VIX. The VIX filled the gap. It formed a 5-minute doji. And then as soon as it formed that 5-minute doji, that trend reversal, the key resistance with big downside potential, it got absolutely crushed. That was the number one reason. What were other reasons? If you've been paying attention, when SPY has these big sell-off for new lows, it's been the best time to be buying the dips towards that like first green candle or the first 5-minute green candle and ride it back up a little bit, especially towards 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And if you just look at the chart, sideways downtrend on the SPYs, sideways downtrend on the SPY, and it's even more oversold than yesterday. Like it just made perfect sense to buy into the fear of the new low of day. So that's how I was able to do it, guys. VIX was the number reason why though. And in terms of, identifying bullish trends on the micro chart, resistance right here, it pulls back, it breaks above resistance, higher support, pushes above resistance, boom, right there at 359, that's confirmation to be buying as well. So those were all the reasons why. And then I just lock in gains on the rip. That's what I do. So that is the main strategy. I'm telling you, man, if you played that strategy today, you watched my video, and if you understood, how we talk about all the time, when stocks have overreactions and then they fill their gaps, they tend to have reversals. So you just wait for a quick confirmation and you scalp them, right? Just look at how perfectly this strategy has been working. Just this week alone, just look at this. It's getting you in at the best prices possible. We're talking about puts right here, and then we're talking about puts right here, and then we're talking about calls right here on VIX, right? So you do the inverse. So in terms of the VIX, it's kind of like the inverse SPY. So if VIX looks bearish right here and you're going to play puts, you buy the calls on SPY. If VIX looks bullish right here and you think it's going to go up, then you would play the puts on SPY. So that's how you do it in a sense, guys. That's the main strategy. Now let's discuss some of the other opportunities. So Lucid had a gap to fill at $15.67. With that being said, I did scalp this and it was a 15% win. I made 15% on Lucid very, very quickly, and I locked in my gains, and it's a good thing I did that because those calls got absolutely destroyed. Like I said, I'm in and I'm out. So there was a gap to fill 1569. This is a make it or break it level. If it fails to have a reversal here, it's going to get crushed because there's big downside potential, right? But it's also a key support level where we could see a micro bounce for a reversal. So I did it and it worked. My target was $16. I was selling at $15.90. I held half my size for a little bit, and then I got out at $15.83 on the rest. It was an average return of like 10% very, very quickly. I was scalping the calls when it was at $15.70 in the 1570s. I was scalping calls, rode it up for the uptrend to 1590s. Within that 20-cent spike at the peak, the calls were up 14%, in and out like that. Like I said, there hasn't been some major big win setups for me lately. In terms of the major big wins, a lot of them have been, at the gap fill levels, like the gap fill level on here on SPY. This one, I missed it, unfortunately, but guess what? I learned from it. I learned from missing out on that, and I nailed it today. So check this out. This is crazy. I missed out buying SPY calls right here on the dip when it filled the gap. As soon as SPY filled this gap, it ripped up massively. I missed out on that opportunity, but today I didn't miss out. SPY didn't fill a gap today, but guess what did? The VIX did. So you could have used the strategy. VIX had a gap to fill right here. When VIX filled this gap, and formed this 5-minute doji. This is my best trade of the day. I bought the SPY calls, played for the reversal. If VIX fills a high gap at major resistance and it forms that doji or it forms that red bearish candlestick, buy the calls on SPY and SPY rockets. So see how well I adapted and see how well I played that. That was my number one trade idea for the day. And it was so perfect, man, because I kept on talking about it. I kept on discussing it, man. I kept on saying, VIX has this gap to fill. If it occurs at 3 p.m., that's going to be the key time to buy the SPY calls because VIX is going to get crushed now the reversal, which sends SPYs to the moon. And also just studying the trends and studying the patterns and all the confirmations that I've talked about. So those were the main plays. Those were the main opportunities in terms of like the number one best setups that I've seen today. In terms of the best plays of the days in terms of like big win wise were SPY puts at resistance and then SPY calls. If you bought the calls right here at 3 p.m., that was a big win. And if you were buying puts at resistance, that was a big win as well. Those were the main plays. But I really hope you guys understand it and are learning this strategy, because I'm telling you, if you're following the VIX along with the SPY and you're using what I'm showing you, if you're just, look at this, guys, a gap close reversal right here, the exact top, it sells off. There's a gap to fill here, the exact top, it sells off. 2 opportunities to load the fuck up on SPY calls right here. It fills the gap. Great opportunity to load up on some SPY puts. VIX rips instantly. So the thing is, if I wasn't watching the VIX, I wouldn't have been able to even use my gap close reversal strategy yesterday, because SPY didn't fill a gap. SPY didn't fill a gap today. Yesterday, SPY filled the gap, and it ripped up like crazy when it filled the gap. Today, VIX is the one that filled the gap. And when VIX filled that gap at key resistance, and I was planning this so far in advance, like I said, around 2 p.m., I was talking about this idea. And as soon as this doji formed, I loaded up on the SPY calls. Because like I said, if VIX forms a doji, it forms a bearish candlestick at an extremely high gap prior to having a massive move up. This is a massive move up, and look at what it's doing. VIX had a massive reversal yesterday at 32.70. Because this is an overreaction. This is an instant spike, right? So VIX went even lower, bottoming at 27.80s, filling this gap, having a reversal, and rocketing back up just a day later to fill this gap. You really think it's going to keep on pushing up? No, this is a classic opportunity to buy into the fear. To buy into the fear of SPY calls. Why buy into the fear? Why buy into the lows? Because the VIX filled the gap and it formed a doji. That's the number reason why. If there was no gap fill here, I probably wouldn't have bought SPY calls. If VIX didn't have a gap to fill here, and if it didn't form that confirmation, I most likely would have not bought SPY calls. In terms of looking at the SPY chart, it has been having nice rips into the new low of day sell-off right around 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. That has been occurring. But in terms of my strategy, what I preach, what I teach in terms of strong confirmations, if we get an overreaction on the VIX where it fills the gap and forms a bearish candlestick or a trend reversal candlestick at resistance, when it fills that gap, load up on SPY calls. And then the inverse, when VIX has a massive sell-off and fills the gap right here, load up on SPY puts. So there you go. That's how you trade the best setups at the best prices using the VIX and the SPY. That is the number one lesson, man. I literally played it perfectly on the SPY calls. So that was the trade, guys. That trade made my entire week. It's insane what I was able to do with that trade, and that idea just worked out so well. So with that being said, just gonna have to reset, man. We're gonna have to see what this market wants to do tomorrow. We gotta wait for some gaps to fill. SPY has a gap to fill at 379.20, so we're mainly just waiting. So in terms of like trading the best setups at the best prices, we mainly just gotta wait. Here's what we do know. We do know the VIX has been having reversals, right? So check this out. VIX filled this gap yesterday right here, and it had a reversal. And the next day it rocketed up. So what did the VIX do today? It had an overreaction. It filled this high gap. It's showing signs of weakness. It's showing signs of a double top. It's having a reversal. So if the VIX cracks 33, the VIX is going to fall off a fucking cliff tomorrow. SPY is going to pump, and it's going to fill this gap at 29.62. So what am I waiting for? I'm waiting to see how the VIX reacts at 29.62. That's a key level I'm waiting for on the VIX, 29.62. I want to see how it reacts when it fills the gap. Look at this. Gap close reversal here, gap close reversal here, gap close reversal right here. So much opportunity just this week with laser quick scalps. In terms of the SPY, I want to see how the SPY reacts to 379.20. Once we get to 379.20, that's when you load up on SPY puts. So I'm basically waiting for those two gaps to fill. And then in terms of the pre-market and then in terms of tomorrow, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of other quick scalps with other opportunities that I'm not speaking about in this video because I got to wait for the chart to develop, which happens past 11 a.m. I also got to wait for pre-market data to come in. But that's the main plays. That's the main opportunities that I'm looking forward from here. Looking at the chart and looking at how things are looking at right now, let's take a look at the daily. The VIX is due for a pullback and SPY is due for a move up. I'm waiting for one of those gaps to fill. So I'm waiting for the gap to fill here and I'm waiting for the gap to fill in the VIX. That's going to give me a better trend direction to see how it reacts, right? So we want to see how it reacts. In terms of how does the VIX look, VIX is due for an overall pullback, but we just got to wait. We got to wait for the gaps to fill. We got to sit on the sidelines for a bit and we got to wait, and there's going to be more scalping opportunities tomorrow. So that's going to be it, guys. That's the main. This was more of educational, more teaching strategy. In terms of the best levels, I gave you guys the best levels that I'm waiting to see how it reacts. We just got to wait things out for a little bit here. But tomorrow should be a phenomenal day, man. Tomorrow looks like it's going to be an absolutely phenomenal trading day. So yeah, we just got to wait to see if it's going to be a big gap down, a big gap up, and then we just wait for it to go back to the previous closing prices, or we wait for these gaps to fill right here. But that's going to be wrapping up this video lesson. Hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a lot. If you do want to be a part of Trader Society, that's going to be the first link down below in the description. It's going to explain to you everything that's included within Trader Society. It's a one-time fee. You get lifetime access to the entire program, to the video lesson library where you learn the entire trading system, which is, you know, how to trade the best setups at the best prices, how to scalp as well, how to trade the options both ways, both calls and puts, risk management, position sizing, psychology, mindset to trading. It also includes the chat room, the moderators within the chat room, and then the live trading stream that we do every single day at Market Open. You get to watch me trade live at the open. We're going to be adding more of a voice channel soon as well. There's a lot more to it, man. If you want to check it out, if you want to join and get instant lifetime access, it is going to be the first link down below in the description. You can get started trading with us live tomorrow at Market Open. That's going to wrap up this video lesson. Guys. This is absolutely phenomenal, man. I'm just so glad that you guys get to see this and see how it plays out the next day and see it in real time, because I told you, man, these reversal levels, when it fills the gap with an overreaction, play the reversal. And that's exactly what occurred, and that's exactly what we did with the SPY calls at 3 p.m. So that's going to be wrapping up this video lesson. If you want to be a part of Trader Society, it's going to be the first link down below in the description.